Welcome to The Space Between. On this episode, I am joined by Kristina Adduci. Kristina is the CEO of House of Puff, a women-owned and Latina-led company committed to promoting inclusivity and breaking down stigmas surrounding cannabis. Together, we discuss what it means to be an entrepreneur in the space between and what our hope is for the future of business ownership. Join us as we connect through conversation. Welcome to The Space Between. I am so excited to have my dear friend, lovely human, amazing woman, amazing mother, kick-ass businesswoman. We're going to keep going, okay?
You're making me blush.
Kristina Lopez Adduci. Welcome to The Space Between.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And I've been waiting for you to do this for so long, and I'm honored to be one of your guests.
Thank you so much. You've been such a support system to me, and God, do we need support more than ever.
I mean.
And thank you for just being you.
Yes.
And we're going to get into it.
Okay.
How we met, all of it.
I'm excited.
You should be. And I know you'll be very excited too, to the audience. Today we have a very interesting theme of, and I know I'm going to fumble this word, entrepreneurship.
You nailed it.
For once.
Yeah.
We'll see how the rest of it goes. So entrepreneurship, and the way we start every podcast is the definition, and then we're going to talk about you and all of the things. So we read from the Oxford Dictionary.
Okay.
It's very British, and I thought it was cool, so why not? Entrepreneurship is a person who makes money by starting or running businesses, especially when this involves taking financial risks. That is literally the definition of it.
That tracks.
It totally tracks. And when I started thinking about this, and it was a topic that came very easily. When you're in it, you're in it. You've been an amazing help and support for me to become an entrepreneur a couple years ago. And it's a topic that I think is very timely in the space between, because so many more people are actually getting in to businesses for themselves and trying to find their purpose and all of it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into entrepreneurship and how you arrived with your amazing business and brand, the House of Puff.
Yeah, for sure. So I joke because my first business was when I was a kid, and I would have the kids in the neighborhood come and give me worms, and I would operate on the worms, and I would charge them because they like to be grossed out. And so I would literally charge them to watch me cut up. I swear I'm normal.
This is amazing. I didn't know this about you.
You did not. So that was sort of my first, all right, maybe I always knew I wanted to be my own boss, without a doubt. Okay. Every corporate job that I had, I was happy. I loved what I did. I was at the Michael J. Fox Foundation for a while, learned a lot. I got my master's degree in political science, thought I wanted to dabble in politics for a little bit. But when I left the foundation, it was to start a art magazine called Art Zealous. Yes. At the time, I had moved to New York. I knew very little people. And so I just joined all of these young patrons groups, the Guggenheim, the Whitney, the MoMA. They all had these programs called the junior associates or the young contemporaries. And it was for people under the age of 35 to come and support and go to events and all that stuff. So little by little, year after year, my circle started. Actually, that's how you and I know each other.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Through our Boo Lewis. And so slowly but surely, all of my friends were immersed in the art world. They became curators, gallerists, working at nonprofits, museums. And what I realized, there was sort of, you have the art forums and the art news of the world, and a lot of that is difficult to freaking understand, the articles that they're putting out.
I can't imagine.
And you're just what is a lithograph? I don't understand. So I decided I wanted to do a short form art magazine, but also interview emerging up and coming artists that could not pay for the spot in one of these high end art publications. And so that's what we did. And then, in tandem, we launched a photography service, because we all know the photography services in the city specifically are really expensive. So if an artist has an opening, they cannot afford $506 an hour. So we were $200 an hour, $125 an hour. And then we would take the photos, put it on Artzelis so everybody could see. We tagged their names. And so it's like, hey, you went to this, or maybe you didn't. And here's this, cool artist from Bushwick that you can probably collect, artwork for under 10 grand, under $1,000, $500. And so that was sort of my first venture into entrepreneurship. And right around that time, started to develop a lot of anxiety, as most New Yorkers do.
And a new business owner living in New York City.
So not sleeping, and wanted to get off the pharmaceutical train, wanted to stop with the NyQuils and the Z-Quils and the Xanax and all of that stuff. And I kept hearing about cannabis. Now, I grew up in my family, a very strict Puerto Rican household.
The opposite of my family.
Yeah. And so there was no mention of weed. I did not consume in college, grad school, none of that. And so at the ripe old age of 27, I decided I'm going to give cannabis a try. When I went to go do that, the products that, I was using, the bongs, the one-hitters, they were clearly marketed towards men. And here I am. I have an art magazine. I'm a New Yorker. We have a certain kind of expectation of things in our apartment.
Absolutely.
And I thought, I have a roster of all these artists that I've worked with. Why don't I just create something beautiful? And then that's how House of Puff was born, which is my current baby.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack there.
I know. I kept it very short and sweet.
By the way, I'm very proud of you. It's not easy. You've accomplished a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I think one of the things that I keep thinking about when it comes to these businesses, and even the worms, people like to be entertained. There's a need. When you find a need, that's where the creativity starts. And you and I are both fans of Rick Rubin.
Yep.
He is amazing. And I mentioned his book a lot in this. And it's really when you feel like something needs to be birthed or created into the world.
Yeah.
We are all creators. And, you found it. Started with the worms and then Artzelis. And I love that story, by the way.
Let's make a t-shirt. I started with the worms.
It's great. Absolutely. But then with House of Puff, how funny, and I actually never even made this connection, that when you were working and trying to birth and have Artzelis be your thing, and then all of a sudden you were like, wait, I'm falling apart a little bit, which is a huge piece of entrepreneurship for everyone that does it. And that's not to scare people.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. And we're going to talk about that too. So I guess, one of the things that I wanted to kind of highlight, which I think is interesting, is that we have small businesses and the SBA, which is the Small Business Association, estimates that 99.9% of all business is small business. I was shocked by that.
That's crazy.
Because
repeat that again?
99.9% of all businesses in America are small businesses.
Wow.
I know. I said the same thing because you think about, we'll just talk about House of Puff, right? Because that's your current baby and you're throwing everything into this brand. And we're going to link it below. Check it out. It's amazing. And it's just beginning. So, the thing is that we are living in a corporatocracy. I could really go there, but I'm not.
Yep.
And all we hear about is big business. All we hear about is, BlackRock and Amazon and all of those things. And I think the narrative is really, really focused on that, right? But most of the people we talk to in our circles, if they are entrepreneurs, they're working in a small business capacity.
Yeah. And they've created those businesses. I surround myself with a lot of entrepreneurs that are the founders. I think founders have an incredible journey and story, and we need the support from each other because it is not for the faint-hearted. There are a lot of great ideas, but if you can't execute and you don't find, to your point, that niche, that need.
The need,
Unfortunately, a lot of small businesses fail because you got to have some grit and you have to really believe in what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you have to have the right people to support you too.
Right.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that because I always thought, and I don't know where this came from, that 90% of small businesses fail in the first year. That is not true.
You don't think that's true? That wouldn't surprise me if that was true.
It wouldn't either. again, we're going off of statistics, government statistics. Okay. I'll link it below if anyone's interested. The Bureau of Labor Statistics in the U.S., they kind of track everything. 20% of businesses fail in the first 2 years.
Okay.
Seems low.
Okay. It seems a little low.
Okay. I think make your own decision.
I think that seems low.
It seems low. And 25% of businesses make it past 15 years.
Okay.
Which makes more sense to me.
That makes more sense to me.
15 years is a long time.
That's a long time to be in a business.
How long has House of Puff been since its birth?
Since it's, well, it's complicated because I signed up for, got my trademark, which I did. I don't know how I did that. I'm pregnant, like on bed rest. I'm not a lawyer at all. Like my lawyer till this day says, I don't know how you figured that out.
Bravo, not easy.
I just appealed to the trademark office, the guy in DC. I was like, oh, I'm pregnant and I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, all right, I'll help you. So that was 2019 and then or 2018. And then it really didn't become a full-fledged business until 2020 when I brought on my business partner, Holly Hager.
Right. Holly's wonderful too.
She's amazing.
She is amazing.
Couldn't do without her.
It's important to have partnerships.
There you go.
Absolutely.
It's good to it's hard to find a good co-founder.
Absolutely. And that's when I launched the business with my husband, the mortgage business in 2020. What were we thinking? Oh, I know. 2020.
A pandemic's a brewing. Why not? Yeah. And
then we also have all that energy from what was happening. And a lot of what we talk about this podcast is energy and astrology. We're going to get into a bit of that. So, one of the things, too, that I wanted to mention is that new business applications and new entrepreneurs, finding their ideas and putting them into motion and action is rising. So in 2022, there was 5.1 million new businesses that were, and that's also from the Chamber of Commerce.
Can always count on the chamber.
So it's growing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. We're in an interesting economy right now. We're shooting this in
That's putting it lightly.
Almost November of 2023.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, and they only do it year by year. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what that looks like.
I believe that number.
It is.
I think that's probably a low number, to be honest. Think about the people with side hustles, the people who are unemployed, who need another, so I bet you, especially the pandemic. I mean, look at all these, the TikTokers and the people on YouTube, everybody was at home, and now some of them are multi-millionaires.
Absolutely.
And a lot of them. So I think that number might be low, Chamber.
I love that we're calling about get it together. But that's the thing. I mean, driving new business post-pandemic, people were home. They had time to really sit and think about, who am I? What do I want my life to be? Why am I here? Like these existential, and this is literally how this podcast was born, right? We've changed so much over the past couple of years. It is driving people to be like, you know what? Worker pay stagnation is disgusting.
Yeah.
We all know what's going on with that. Priorities, the purpose that we have in our lives, technology.
Oh.
Think about how much easier it is to start a business. I mean, I know people that have Amazon online stores and courses and coaching and
all of that.
It feels like, because my great-grandparents on both sides were business owners, and then everyone else wasn't. It's really interesting. So I'm kind of like rounding out, the third generation of kind of going back into it. You had a store. That was it. If you were a business owner, you had some sort of a storefront or you delivered something to someone's home. And now there's a million things that you can do.
And you don't even have to leave your house if you don't want to.
Absolutely. And that's part of this economy and part of the reason that there is so much more opportunity. I also think too, and this is something I wanted to ask you, because the vision that you have for your company and the values behind it and the purpose behind it. When it comes to House of Puff, what is really the vision and the purpose that you want from your brand? And you're always so good at talking about it. So I was excited to bring it up today.
Yeah, I think House of Puff, first and foremost, we need to destigmatize, or we're trying to destigmatize cannabis. Yeah. Cannabis is a plant.
Yes.
Cannabis is medicine.
Yes.
Yes, some people like to get high for fun. That is great. But first and foremost, this is plant medicine.
Absolutely.
And, it's better than Advil. It's some say better than alcohol. You know, I would argue, yeah, alcohol, don't get me wrong. I love my martini.
Right.
But it's not great for me if I'm having a martini, you know, 5 days a week, but I could have a puff or two every single day.
Absolutely.
Especially aches and pains. I have twins, sleep. So destigmatizing the plant, first and foremost, one of our core values. And we do that through chic and stylish products that are easy to use. They're approachable. You can leave them out on your coffee table and not be embarrassed. Mm-hmm. And we couple that with viral content. So during the pandemic, a lot of the dispensaries that were carrying us were closing.
Right.
Or we're running out of money, or pick one, like any small business. A lot of them, it was hard. So we thought, how do we reach our customer or future customer, right? The kind of curious specifically, like women like me who are like, I don't know how to roll a joint.
Kind of curious. I love that.
Yeah. I don't know like which end of the pipe to light. So we just took out an iPhone and, you know, if you Google how to roll a joint, I guarantee you the first video that pops up now is House of Puff.
It's a good one.
But it took a while to get there, right?
Link it below.
Yeah. A lot of the videos were, again, I'm a proud Puerto Rican woman. I want to see somebody like me because the stigma is already. I'm a mom. I'm Latina. I'm a woman. It's a triple whammy in terms of stigma.
Absolutely.
If I'm going to be able to feel comfortable to talk about this, I want to see somebody like me teaching me how to roll a joint. What's a terpene? What's the difference between CBN and CBD? Things like that. So education is paramount to us. And so, well, we do it in a really cute way. You know, mm-hmm. We're filming in my kitchen. We make it nice. But at first, it was just an iPhone because we didn't have a budget.
Right.
So it's come a long way. But at the end of the day, we just want to make it accessible. We want to make it easy. We want to make it normal, like having a glass of wine. You see all these people on Instagram with their glasses of wine. God forbid, you see somebody smoking a joint, and it's like, Instagram shutting you down. Somebody's making a judgment call on you. You're like the lazy stone or your couch lock. Like some of the most successful people in the world, like consume cannabis.
Absolutely.
They just don't talk about it. So if we get the dialogue going, then, you know, hopefully at a federal level, we'll start to see some movement.
Absolutely. And you've taught me so much about it. And I, you know, had historically smoked cannabis for a long time, and it's come so far. I think, you know, thanks to companies like you and visions and missions like you, which is so core to being an entrepreneur. Why are you doing what you are doing? What is your why, right? Mm-hmm. Why are you doing what you're doing? That's huge, you know? And I think the content just, you guys have come so far, and content is king, and nobody likes sitting around and shooting content all day. It's not fun. I mean, if you do, then that's great. I don't think most of us are that way. But being an entrepreneur means putting yourself out there. Yeah. And not only did you put yourself out there, which obviously you had Art Zealous to kind of warm you up, but you went bam as a woman, as a Latina, like all the things, a mom.
Yeah.
And you just started advocating for something that, quite honestly, 2019, right? That when you started the business, very different than it is today.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Cannabis is counter-cyclical. So when the pandemic happened, people were home. Obviously, people were drinking more, but like dispensaries were making bank.
Of course.
They were, what do they call the businesses that didn't shut down? There was like a term for that.
Oh, yeah. Like hospitals and stuff. I can't think of what it is. I know what you're talking about.
Like a necessary.
Right.
They became.
I can't remember.
I know. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
right?
they became like an integral. They got to stay open.
Right.
Well,
especially here in New York City.
Not in the beginning.
For y'all that don't live in New York City, it was a very different here.
Yeah, not in the beginning, but after a while.
Essential business.
I knew I was going to think there you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, people were buying cannabis like I've never seen.
Hand over fist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because everybody was also super anxious, depression, like rates hiked up.
Absolutely.
You know, we were isolated from each other, right? We're social creatures. We're social beings. We need to be around each other. We need to, you know, hug each other. So it was really a great time, you know, to come into the space. You know, there were some struggles. We had major supply chain struggles.
Right.
Like everybody did. But you know, everything happens for a reason. And I think the pandemic really forced us to think outside, all right, beyond accessories, right? So all rolling papers, pipes, trays, all the beautiful stuff that we produce with artists. beyond that, I don't know that we've ever done content. And content marketing, especially in cannabis, is because we're shadow banned on half the. I put one thing on TikTok, girl, forget it. It gets shut down in 2 seconds.
That's going to be a whole other episode. We're going to have to talk about censorship. Mm-hmm. But I just have to congratulate you for putting yourself out there. And I've talked about this on other episodes. It was really hard for me to get this going. Mm-hmm. I have a mortgage company with my husband. It's easier to put myself out there when I'm talking about that, right? Putting yourself out there with something that you're so passionate about that almost feels like a part of you is really hard.
Yeah.
And if you are someone out there that's thinking about starting a business, you have that idea, you have something that's giving you that nudge, right? Act on it.
Yeah.
Who knows? As we sit here, I have no idea what this is going to become, but I'm excited about it because I know that this conversation needs to happen, just like you knew that something had to change.
Right.
And you wanted to be part of that change and you felt very strongly. And that's a big deal in life. We get one shot at this life, right? And we all came back here with a purpose. And so much of a purpose can be linked to starting a business. It could be linked to having something on the side, like, whatever. Or it could just be something that you do for fun or something that feeds your soul. But I think the biggest thing in the space between is to take a step forward into it. And everything is going to be screaming at you to not do that. Yeah. Once you make that decision, it's like you have to break through those walls. And we are in times of higher anxiety. The world is crazy. Everything's wild. Things are chaotic and messy and scary and horrible in so many ways. But we can't quiet those calls.
Right.
That voice, right? And it is energy. It's energy that's pushing us to do what we came here to do.
Yeah, 100%. You cannot be risk averse to be an entrepreneur. That's for sure. Yeah. You just have to follow your gut, your intuition.
Absolutely.
And it's never steered me wrong, I don't think.
Well, so far, no. And you're only just beginning, let's be honest. So that's an interesting point that I wanted to bring up is the risk and kind of following your intuition. I think, and I've talked about this in other episodes, as women, we were told to stand aside or be quiet or, I'm a recovering codependent. And so I think there's a lot of that goes on. How were you able to, and maybe this is something you've always had, I didn't. I had to kind of find this really deep and learn. How were you able to take a risk? Like I started this business with my husband during COVID.
Yeah.
I turned 40 and I freaked out and I was like, okay, I just can't do this anymore. I thought about it for 5 years. Mm-hmm. I fell apart. And quite honestly, I'm still dealing with the reverberations of that. Mm-hmm. Do you think you were always kind of leaning towards risk, or do you think that's something that you have? Obviously, it gets easier, but how would you respond to that?
I don't think I am inherently a risk taker, but I saw my grandparents take risk. I saw my mom take risk. Right? You know her story. Mm-hmm. Selling real estate, and then
incredible story.
And then one day waking up saying, "I think I want to be a doctor." And I was like 5 years old.
At what age?
I know. She was like 35, like something. She was like the oldest person in her class. And like now she's like a big deal and, crushing it. So I think I almost forced myself to become a risk taker because I saw how good it turned out for them.
So you had a model.
I had a model.
Multiple models.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting because I didn't.
Yeah.
That might be something that people will resonate with.
Yeah. Pull the onion back on that one.
Right. What was your background like? What was your environment like
when I was growing? Like
no, to in order to step into entrepreneurship. I mean, you had other people that were risk takers. My family, I kind of didn't. It was always play it safe, work for someone. You have to have health insurance, and that makes sense. My grandparents were they worked. I guess they were kind of like what you would be considered blue collar. Mm-hmm. They did very well. They had pensions, right? It was a very different time. But both of my great grandparents on both sides were entrepreneurs, but I didn't know them, right? So I think it's kind of interesting that their kids went the opposite direction, and now here's me kind of flipping things around again. What do you think your girls will do? Do you sense that? I mean, they're pretty young.
I know.
And
they're
amazing.
5. They're the cutest. I want them to do whatever makes them happy, follow their passions. I think, to your point, I think sometimes as young adults, we get caught up in got to get the 9 to 5, got to get the paycheck, got to get the healthcare. And yes, those are things that healthcare, I would say, is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But I hope that they follow their intuition and their passions. Right. And luckily for me, I was able to do that because I had the support of my family.
Yeah.
So they will always have my support, whatever they want to do, God willing. And I would want them, I would love for them to work for me.
I was going to say, I could
a dynasty.
Could see it. Just the two of them doing content for House of Public. I would die. I would die.
Like obsessed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope that I think they'll be a little more, I think they'll take more calculated risks than I did.
Yeah.
I think it'll come more naturally to them.
And also, just like you were looking at your mom.
Yeah.
They're looking at you.
Yeah.
You're taking a lot of risks.
Yes. Yes.
And really, I think the risks help you find who you really are. Because when you play it safe and you're conservative, I can't believe how much I've grown, not only in this transitional time, which is what this whole podcast is about, but it just in general with kind of, I always say I jumped out of an airplane with no parachute.
I think you find who you really are in times of when things aren't so good.
Absolutely. We're all in that right now.
Yeah.
And it's been hard.
And it's hard. Growing is hard. I'm growing. Like I hope we're all, unfortunately, I know some people who are stuck and stagnant because they want to play it safe. People rather play it safe than go to the unknown.
Right.
Even if it means being 50% happy. They'd rather be 50% happy for the rest of their life, but stay safe.
And never really push their potential.
And really never push their potential and potentially be 100% happy. That's how we're wired.
It's an interesting point that you bring up. And that's why these always flow, right? The narrative of you need to go to work, you need to, have health insurance. That's pushed. Listen, back up. Every single business is, I don't care how big or small, an entrepreneur runs it.
Right.
And in order to have a successful business, eventually you have to scale your company and you have to have people that work for you that will do things that either you're not as good at or will cost you less money to do or whatever, right? So we have a structure, and a lot of what we talk about is structures, right? The structure of I am your boss and you work for me. I was employed. I've had many careers. I worked in healthcare. I worked in technology. I did a lot of different things. And the bottom line is that for most companies, you're a number. Yeah. And you are a line on the P&L, a little check mark next to your name. And the economy and society as it is ticks on with that being the way that it is. And we're seeing this now as people are leaving the workforce in droves. Mm-hmm. We have, quite frankly, what I think, and I will go here now, a bullshit unemployment rate. This is October 2023. Excited to see where that goes. And I know I have to be careful here. But that's another thing too. People are just like, I'm not taking this anymore. Wages and CEO pay and all of that. People are fed up. And I think what's really great, especially as women business owners, which I think is the future, I really do. I think there's going to be so many more of us. We're going to look at things differently. Yes. The people that work with you, not for you, right? Mm-hmm. As an entrepreneur, we have an amazing responsibility, not only to bring our creative ideas to life, but to serve and to make changes. And I talk a lot about the age of Aquarius in the podcast because we're moving into this time where things are going to have to be different. We see everything breaking down right now. If you have an idea, bring it to life. The world needs your ideas. Yes, I don't know how, right? And I know it seems very contrived and almost too simple, and it's not. We're not saying that it's simple, but put it out there. Yeah. The only way we get through this time right now is
which
to
is
do
brutal
things differently. and figure out ways to do things, to challenge the status quo of cannabis. With my mortgage company, it's to really serve people. It's the most emotional purchase of someone's life. Why are people treated poorly? Why are people screwed over? It's just awful. My intention for this is to have people connect back to themselves in this really, really tough, transitional, funky time that we're in.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And so, I think the other thing too, and this is what I was about to get to before, was the intuition. Because there is no roadmap when you're creating your own business.
I wish there was.
I was just going to say.
I wish there was.
But we really can't think of is that another business idea?
Yeah.
It's kind of not, I'm sure I'm not the only ones, right, that have thought about that. But my intuition, I've questioned it a lot. How would you kind of talk about?
I never question my. It's actually like my superpower.
That's beautiful.
Never question my intuition. Like my gut. Like, for example, when I meet somebody for the first time, even before they open their mouth, most of the time, I have an intuition on whether we're gonna get along or not, and 99% of the time, I'm right. I think it's intuition. I think it's energies. Like my mom is the same way. I just have this ability to just feel even without words. It's energy. And it's never led me wrong. I'm sitting next to you because of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Our first meeting was amazing.
Yeah. And I knew immediately, I was like, oh, this is my girl.
Yeah.
And I think people in my life, this is the same when I've met them, I'm like, you're good people. We're going to be friends. You're going to be my business partner.
Right.
You're going to be my best friend. Like, we're going to do great things together. So I always trust my instinct.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think too, I find my intuition and instincts a little different with my business because I am newer to the game. Because you make a mistake and then, let me back up. Not a mistake. I'm trying to use my words here. When you have a lesson that you need to learn and things don't work out the way you think they might, it can be really devastating. Like when you have to fire somebody or let somebody go, or, you lose a bunch of money and you tend to question your intuition. So how in business have you been able as an entrepreneur to really just continue to be like, no, I know what I need to do. It's leading me down the path.
I surround myself with smart people who have done it, people like yourself. You're one of my investors, right? Because you trust me and you're brilliant and you think in a way that I don't think. So I try to surround myself with people smarter than me, people who are better at things that, like I'm terrible with numbers, right? So I try to surround myself with people who can help and grow me.
Right.
But there are situations where I have done something that, taken money from somebody I shouldn't have taken money from because I had heard, or I had there's always a back of, so the instinct and intuition works both ways, right? So I can have a good intuition, but then there's always that hidden intuition that's
right.
As an entrepreneur who, fundraised for a lot of years, I need this money. But should I over here? Should you take it?
That little voice, that deepest intuition.
And sometimes, in one particular situation, it didn't work out.
Right.
I spent a lot of money on legal fees that I'll never recoup. But I wouldn't change anything. It was
same
lesson I learned to, again, always listen to the backdoor intuition, the one that's when you're a business owner, you're going to have decisions like that. You need the money. You need this. You need the capital. You need that rock star person. But then if you ever hear that little cricket in the back, listen to it.
Listen. I think that's so inspiring. I'm so glad that actually you brought up the intuition thing. And so much of what we talk about is sort of spiritual and energetic, and intuition has never been more important right now because everything we are consuming, whether it's social media, news media, conversations with people, conversations you hear, on the street, something you read, we have to be so decisive and so specific of not only protecting our energy, but listening to that intuition. It's never been more important.
Yep.
And as a woman, as an entrepreneur, as all the things that you are, that is really what's going to be able to protect us moving forward. I mean, I don't want to say that I think things are going to get that much worse. I mean, they're pretty bad right now, but we never know.
Buckle up.
It's wild. I mean, very, very wild. Wild, wild times. All right. Well, so usually what we do is we end with a series of questions, and this has been so wonderful.
I know.
I'm totally having you back.
I feel like time flew.
It flies.
When we're having fun.
With friends you love.
Yes.
So the first question is, how has your relationship and really, I guess, the understanding of being an entrepreneur evolved in the space between? So think about, 3 years ago kind of isn't fair because we were like right smack in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah. So I really call the space between like the last 6 months to a year, right? How has it changed for you? And your business has really evolved.
It has. I would say I used to think it was mostly about the money, chasing the coin, right?
Yes.
And then I've met some pretty spectacular people in the last 6 months who have completely, you being one of them, changed the way I think about that. Now it's more about being adaptable. I've learned to be more adaptable and innovate, doing things that haven't been done or maybe haven't been done to your standards or what you want to see in the world. And so I've really unlocked this creating with intention.
That's beautiful.
As opposed to creating for money.
I actually felt that when you said that. Creating for, that is, and being of service. What you said about your vision of House of Puff, what you are trying to do, service. How can we continue to serve? Because when we're in our purpose and we're serving, the money will come.
Exactly. And
that's how it works.
And I had always got it like jumbled. I always put the money first.
Absolutely.
Then I'll go serve and find my purpose and, wrong.
And my husband's going through that too.
Yeah.
It's being in the financial services business, we literally deal with money.
Yeah.
Like we don't have a product, we have a service, right? It's weird. And I think he's really shifted, and I'm going to have him on to talk about that too, because it's been.
I can't wait for that.
It's been, he's made a lot of changes too.
Yeah.
Again, space between, we're all changing.
There you go.
Wild times. So how has being an entrepreneur impacted your life? That's such a big question.
That's such a wow. How much time do we have?
Let's ask this. We like to end on a positive note.
Okay.
So how has being an entrepreneur impacted your life in a positive way?
It made me more resilient.
Oh yeah.
And talk about personal growth, right?
Right.
And a few years ago, I would say, not that I wasn't strong. I'm a strong Latina woman. But I'm resilient and I'm still working on it. But a few years ago, I would fall like a feather, very sensitive, I'm going to quit. I'm not going to do this. Like it's not working out for me. And now
I've been there recently.
Yeah. And now I'm more resilient. I'm adaptable, right? Especially in this freaking environment. You have to be able to move with the waves.
Absolutely.
Instead of fighting them, just got to float. And so I've learned to be a better floater.
This is such good advice. This is dropping gems over here, folks. Wow. That's a fantastic answer.
Thank you.
And I'm proud of you. It's not easy. And if you want to find out what you're made of, start a business.
There you go.
So what change do you want to see with entrepreneurship in the world?
I think we need to lead better, like with the greater good in mind, right? Social change, inclusivity, more freaking women.
Yeah. Oh my God, please.
More people of color, giving them the opportunity. The statistics of, female founders and it's like we get like
it's dismal.
Yeah, 0.8% of venture capital. It's crazy. But when you look at the stats of companies run by women outperform companies run by men.
Absolutely.
So that's the change. Social good, sustainability, our planet, like
literally on fire.
Literally on like fire. So like that's, I hope the next generation, and I know they will, I hope they leave like with social good as the first step.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are paving that way for hopefully to make it easier for them.
Let's hope.
So in that same breath, and not as an entrepreneur, just as a person and a human and a woman, what are your hopes for the future after we move through the space between, however long it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to my point about I want to see young Latino women leading the charge or being a part of the conversation. Like when I was growing up, like I had my mom,
right?
Like, she was like my idol. But other than that, I feel like we didn't have a lot of icons and heroes. Now we do, but when I was growing up, so I would love, like, goals is like I make a boatload of money and like help other Latinas
bring them up
and pursue
and
their
give
dreams
them a voice
and give them a voice. That for me is always like that's the sunset for me. That's where I want to. That's where I want to end up.
I have no doubt.
I'm manifesting that,
and I'm excited to be on the journey and watch you do it.
Yes,
it's not an if, it's a when. You heard it here first.
There you go.
So, where can people connect with you? How can they find you?
They can find me on the Instagram, Kristina Adduci, 2 D's, 1 C. Kristina with a K.
Kristina with a K. We're going to link it below.
Okay. The House of Puff on Instagram, At Home with House of Puff, our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm on all of the things.
We'll throw your link
tree. You'll just throw all the
We'll throw your link tree.
Yeah, there you go.
So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Because it's never easy to talk about your path and how things stand today. It's not easy to put yourself out there. And my hope is that people will continue to do that. And I think it really kind of sinks back into being an entrepreneur and putting yourself out there in general. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for women and people of color and just people to be able to voice who they are and how they view the world and not have it be, slandered or bashed or bullied.
And pursue their dreams.
And to really make a difference in the world. Because
Yeah.
we all came back here for something.
Yes, we did.
And if we don't allow people to speak and be who they are, we're never gonna get there.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much to everyone who listened today for our entrepreneurship theme. Please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. And we cannot wait to see you again in the space between. Thank you so much for joining us in the space between. We hope this conversation sparked connection for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who will find value. And make sure to tune into our next episode as we continue the journey into the core themes of our lives. We'll see you again in the space between.